One of the first things that you have to do if you want to be an investor and if you want to invest is you must obey the first principle of investment. The principle is very simple. It simply says that you must invest in yourself first. Success is something that you attract by becoming an attractive person. Wealth is something you attract. It's not something you pursue, because you have to be the kind of person deserving of what you want. In other words, the point I'm trying to make is this. With investing, it's not the strategy that makes you successful. It's not the investment vehicle of choice that makes you successful. It's not the investment approach. It's not the tactics. It's not the investment manager you use or broker you use. It's the investor that makes the investment successful. And the reason is very simple. Your results are a reflection of the decisions you make and the actions you take. But the decisions you make and the actions you take are simply a result of the quality of your thinking. And therefore, your thoughts, I believe, is where everything begins. And the quality of your thoughts comes from the quality of your mind. You see, we all have a mind. I'm sure you recognize that. It's a fascinating word, the mind. We've never seen one before, but we know we have a mind. We have intellectual faculties of the mind. And one of the intellectual faculties is imagination. The other intellectual faculty is reasoning. The reasoning faculty deals with thinking. The imagination faculty deals with dreaming, visualizing. One of the things you need if you want to succeed in investing is to develop that part of your intellectual mind. Now, all the other faculties should also be developed. Intuition, perception, reason, memory, all of those should be developed as well. Now, the way you develop those is by investing in yourself. And I simply mean by study. Study. Successful investing comes in three parts, from my experience and from my opinion. Number one, you need a skill set. In other words, you need the ability, the talent, the gifts, the skills, whatever you want to call that. You need the mindset. In other words, you need the ability to manage your emotions. In other words, emotional intelligence. You need temperament. You need patience. You need the ability to do what I call critical thinking. And I believe that is perhaps one of the most important part of why it's important to invest in yourself. To succeed in investing, you have to be an independent thinker. That simply means you have to be able to come to conclusions on your own. Not based on what the market thinks, not based on what your neighbor is talking about or what perhaps your cousin is recommending. You have to be able to be an independent thinker. Now, being an independent thinker is one thing. The second thing you need is the ability to beat the market. In order for you to succeed and be exceptional in investing, you have to bet against the market, against the consensus, and you have to be right. In other words, you need a second level of thinking that goes beyond what the average person in the market is doing. And your ability to think comes by your ability to ask yourself the right questions. Now, let me segue for a little while, and please forgive me for this. A number of years ago, I had a difficult experience. That experience was, for a number of years prior to that experience, I had always heard people talk about the importance of thinking. You see, for so many years, I mistook mental activity for thinking. And one interesting day, I asked myself, well, how can I really be a good thinker? Because I came to the realization that a lot of the decisions I was making, that it was very obvious that I wasn't really thinking. And I started to ask the question, what is thinking? Because I was never taught how to think in school. I'm not sure about you, but I wasn't. And as I started to study thinking from other people who were creating results that were better than mine, I came across a definition that I thought was incredible. It was so simple, but it was incredible. It simply said that thinking is simply the process of asking and answering questions. Asking yourself questions and allowing yourself to come up with a number of answers to those questions. Now, you can start off by asking silly questions, and the more you engage in that activity, the more you get to a point whereby you find that the quality of your questions are starting to improve. And therefore, thinking is simply asking questions. Now, what I found that helped me change my life was this. The quality of your thoughts comes from three things. Number one, what you see in terms of if you read, or what you see visually, what you hear in terms of perhaps what you listen to. Number three, the influence you have around you. And I found that investing in myself, in buying the right books, in going to the right seminars, in associating with people that were better than me, in getting myself into like a mastermind group, an association of great people, started to influence the quality of my thoughts. And therefore, because I had better thoughts, I could ask better questions. And because I could ask better questions, my thinking got better. And therefore, my decisions automatically got better. And voila, my results started to improve. Now, this is a long, segued explanation to what we started with, and I must apologize for it. The point I'm trying to make is this. If you want to be an investor, and as a matter of fact, it doesn't really apply to invest in a loan in any area of life. Whatever you want to achieve in life, you must follow three simple steps. It's called be, do, have. The first question you have to ask yourself is not what do I want or what do I have to do. The first question you have to ask yourself is who do I have to be able to do what I have to do so that I can get or I can have what I want. And to become the kind of person deserving of what you want to get, you have to invest in yourself. A lot of people are familiar with Warren Buffett, perhaps considered to be the greatest investor of our time. I personally think he is, judging from his results, but also the consistency and the humility and the humor he's actually put into achieving such success. A lot of people baffle at how good he is. But what I find fascinating is even at age 80 plus, he still spends probably about 60% or 70% of his day reading. I find that interesting. Now, he started reading 250, 400 pages from a very young age. He would go to the library and spend the whole day in the library reading. And because he kept feeding his mind and he kept reading about investing, he got to a point where he found that his thinking about investing was radically different from anyone else's. And he still practices that discipline of study. So, if you look at his success and you say to yourself, what is the ratio of the amount of time he spends studying and investing in his mind compared to the results he's getting? It becomes really obvious why he's very successful. Now, there are other reasons, but I like to think that he spends a lot of time investing in himself so that when the right time comes to make a decision, to identify an opportunity, he has a wealth of information in his memory, but he has a wealth of information to refer back to guide his thinking, decision-making, and his actions. And I've perhaps taken a leaf from that. And so here is my recommendation. I know you haven't asked for it, but I'll give it anyway. Let's assume you want to invest and you have £1,000 to invest. The best recommendation I can give you is this. Out of the £1,000 you have, I'd like you to take between 50 and £100 and invest in yourself. Now that represents between 5 and 10%. Put in yourself. And buy the right books, but don't just buy books and stack them up in your library. Read them. Go to the right seminars. Invest in the right audio material, because you see, study comes in many forms. It's reading, it's listening to audio, it's watching, it's interacting with people. Identify the kind of person you are. Are you auditory? Are you visual? Are you kinesthetic? Whatever it might be, combine all of them, but invest in yourself. I'm not talking about buying things. I'm saying buy information, buy knowledge. Better still, let me use the words of Solomon. Buy wisdom. And the more you buy wisdom and invest that wisdom in yourself, you'll find that your investment decisions get better and it becomes easier for you to be actually a really good investor.